Hello, a very special greeting. Welcome to Informative Synergy, a program that is made for intelligent, interesting, and qualified people like you. Well informed people on topics that are of our interest in politics and administration, that we know that even the air we breathe has to do with political and administrative ideas. Today, I do not know whether to turn the program around, perhaps transcend the program because we are going to speak with what can be said about earthlings, terrestrials, as you wish. From the inhabitants of this world, of this humanity, to the purpose of the possible existence of beings from other planets and who visit us. In a very simple way, we are going to talk about UFOs, unidentified flying objects, and see what impact that has on our quality of life. That of humans, that of Americans, that of Colombians, of Medellin, from every corner of the planet. And for this, we have invited an expert on the subject. His name is Sixto Paz Wells. He is an international ufologist, a student of the UFO phenomenon at an international level. He has written 21 books on the subject. Welcome to the Informative Synergy. Welcome to Colombia, Sixto Paz Wells.
Thank you very much, Roger. It's really a pleasure to be here with you.
Forgive me, but this UFO issue has to do with the quality of life of ordinary people who are now watching us. Or is it the subject of fiction books like yours and fiction films? Rather, material for our films and soap.
Not at all. These books do not pretend to be fiction in any way. They are experiences lived by ordinary people, even by the military, by psychiatrists, by scientists, many people who, at an international level, have had the experience of extraterrestrial contact. Now, this is intimately linked with evolution and with the future of humanity. If it is really shown that we are not alone, that we never have been, that there are civilizations whose only merit is that they began before us and are coming to Earth from immemorial times, we can find that they would be the missing link in the appearance of men on Earth. Throughout the history of humanity, all those ancient cultures, such as the Nazca in Peru, such as Machu Picchu, that have the shape of a condor to be seen from the sky, the sculptures of Easter Island, more than 887 statues that weigh between 75 and 85 tons and all facing the sky. Because also the name of Easter Island in Rapa Nui means the eyes that look to the sky. It is because we have been visited since from immemorial times, and our ancestors are waiting for the return of these children of the stars.
Well, and then what would happen if it is shown today that they say, like witches, UFOs exist, but it is not proven? But because there is no photograph of a UFO that is clear, and not with movements, that is, because there is no concrete and real visualization of these phenomena.
Yes, there are. I precisely have a YouTube channel with my name, Sixto Paz Wells, freely accessible, where you will find footage made by journalists who have accompanied us to a meeting scheduled in advance. The first journalist to accompany us to these meetings was Juan Jose Benitez, the world renowned author of the series of the Trojan Horses books. This journalist, when he was just another press correspondent for the EFE agency, was sent to Peru in 1974 to cover an unusual story about a group of young people who claimed to have had contact. He went with us to the desert south of Lima and managed to videotape these objects. Now, if you go to YouTube, you will find a video called Impressive UFO Sightings in Teotihuacan, Mexico. We went with one of the most important channels in Mexico, such as Televisa, with cameramen, with journalists, everything, in full sun from 10:30 in the morning to 5:30 in the afternoon. 6 objects appeared on the area of the pyramids in front of thousands of tourists. Everyone saw it. The interesting thing of the video is that you can find it there when the journalists say, well, Sixto Paz has invited us because he says that something is going to appear, who knows, incredulous, skeptical. And then at the end they say, it was incredible, it was 6 objects, and filmed by the journalists, not by us.
Well, there are even standards at the international level. I am not sure if in Colombia there are laws, But I know that in the USA there are laws that prohibit and at the same time force the free delivery of the information that exists about UFOs. I will leave it here with this concern that our laws on UFOs, because there are prohibitions, laws that they prohibit, and because now they even talk about freedom of information about UFOs, what does that have to do with the religion? What does that have to do with the economy? What has to do with the macroeconomics? It has to do with the relationships between countries. That has to do with war. That has to do with peace. That we will see it right away after a few messages with Sixto Paz Wells, who is an international ufologist.
Well, first of all, as you know, Julian Assange, this Australian from WikiLeaks group, put in check the governments of the great powers when he unveiled 2.5 million secret documents showing the international policy that has in the USA, all about the manipulation and concealment of information. From the year 2010, 2011, the WikiLeaks group has begun to release the called UFO leaks, secret documents of the US governments on the existence of extraterrestrial life and how politics should be both at the embassies, the consulates of the military air bases regarding the UFO issue. Because on December 17th of 2017, former Congressman Harry Reid, one of the most prolific of the Democrats, declared to all the communication media in the United States that the U.S. government has never stopped researching the UFO issue. It's more, when the Blue Book Project was closed at the end of the decade of the 60s, the U.S. has continued to invest millions of dollars in investigating the presence of beings from another world here on Earth. The United States is the only country that has a law that prohibits having contact with aliens. That is, if they really don't exist, why draft a law that prohibits contact with them? You are bound to present to the government before anyone else any experience that you have had of that type, and the government is here first. They are the only ones that have the authorization to do research on the subject, since it is forbidden for you to have the experience of telling it. Let's remember that the most brilliant mind in the world, who sadly passed away, Stephen Hawking, in the year 2014, was interviewed through a computer because Discovery Channel created all the conditions for this. He unfortunately suffered from lateral sclerosis on the left side of his brain and had him mired in a wheelchair. But he was the most brilliant mind of the world, and he declared that the extraterrestrials exist, that governments know about this, and that we should avoid having contact with them because they could come to invade us or conquer us. If they really come with bad intentions, long ago they would have destroyed us. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, has 400 billion stars. There are at least 100 billion solar systems that our galaxy has. And there are hundreds of billions of galaxies in the universe. Only now, in 2014, thanks to the Rosetta mission, it was possible to place a rogue probe that chased a comet, the 67P, and descended in the nucleus of the comet, discovered that it was a mass of organic molecules. That is, meteorites and comets already drag organic molecules and bombard the worlds as if they were cosmic sperm cells, supporting the ovules. Today, scientists consider that the same process of life that occurred here on Earth must have had occurred throughout the universe. We're not alone in the universe. The scientists all agree that this exobiology, life outside of our planet, is a true fact. Scientists, for example, like Frank Drake, believes Carl Sagan's friend, director of the SETI Smart Search Project, has declared that he is not disgusted to think that in our galaxy must be at least 10,000 highly developed civilizations. Now, the governments know all about this, of course. Why do they hide it? Because, first of all, the military, they don't care whether they are foreigners or aliens. From the moment an identified flying object invades your airspace without you being able to avoid it, it's a national security problem. So facing the taxpayers, you are making a fool of yourselves because you can't help it, because you cannot avoid it. So why there are borders? Why does it exist military if the borders are like a drain? Everything goes through. On the other hand, the most prosperous business today that only competes in profitability with the international drug trafficking is the sale of weapons. All these countries that we admire, like Italy, to France or Germany, USA, Russia, they are all big manufacturers and weapon dealers. If there are no wars, they invent them. It is shown that these beings exist and don't come with bad intentions. All humanity would have to unite as a single great nation in front of the visitors, perhaps with the United Nations as the maximum regency. Then, if the borders disappear, the foreign debt also disappears, because there would be no one who owe it to, and the poverty in the world would end, where there would be a new world economic order. Now, what happens if these extraterrestrial beings tells us another story, like telling us that the missing link is not here on Earth but in the stars? That they salt life on our planet, that if they teach us alternative energies, that with a small quartz crystal you can extract the energy from 1 million barrels of oil or 2 nuclear power plants. Imagine what the exporting countries of oil or core energy would look like then.
What would happen then?
The cultural shock at the political, social, economic, religious level would be radical. The change in humanity would be of 180 degrees.
Allow me to say, what would the extraterrestrial care about us? That problem that terrestrials have, it's their problem.
To them, yes, they would care. Let's say to an anthropologist who arrives to a primitive culture and they come to help us, because somehow through that interaction they too are benefited in some way. So they don't come for free, but obviously they do not come to enslave us or dominate, because they would have done it a long time ago.
Sixto Paz Wells, ufologist, specialist in unidentified flying objects that are supposedly already identified.
Directed alien vehicle, VEDs.
Imagine yourselves, what would happen with the international politics, the relationships between all the nations in the world that have always been supposedly in search for the welfare of humanity, despite the poverty, despite the hunger in the world, despite all the deforestation, etc. What role would it play here? Why do you not tell me anything else? Because there we are releasing some ideas. We are going to look at this phrase, politics should be the part-time career of every citizen. Think of that phrase of Dwight Eisenhower, President of the United States.
Well, it really is a call to everyone, because if we are complaining that many times the authorities are not the most capable or the most appropriate, and that people who truly have the capacity and have morals and ethics, they simply keep out of politics, we would all have to somehow also commit ourselves to the change of our country. This wonder seeing this program on several occasions, because this program seeks to build the political culture of consciousness and the participation of the people. And what does this have to do with the politics, for example, that we relate both here and Sixto Paz, as for example, the air we breathe? Public politics against deforestation and political movements or decisions such as environmental, like peak and plaque, such as that of these has to do with the education, has to do with the culture, with the security, with employment. In short, this aspect of conscience with culture, with security, with employment, in short, this aspect of the conscious interplanetary, if I could say it, like that around the VED vehicles. The people who claim to have had some kind of contact, we have even investigated the subject. We know that alien civilizations who have managed to survive the intolerance, to the selfishness, the stupidity, are ruled by a council of morally qualified people, of highly evolved people, that is. It's not like currently that only those who have the financial backing of large corporations that are dedicated to deforestation, to pollute the oceans, pollute the rivers, and somehow destroy the planet. For example, today we eat bread. Instead of feeding us, it makes us fat, and even created problems of diabetes and creates problems for us, in this case even colon cancer. because 80 years ago, 100 grams of bread had 100 milligrams of magnesium. Today is not even 5 milligrams because it is being refined so much, the flour, so that you do not eat, but it creates health problems for the pharmaceutical companies to intervene. I don't say all, but their business is the disease of the people. That kind of thing is no longer seen in other worlds. That there are benefits created above the common good. Then many things have to change. That is why I had the opportunity to be invited twice to the United Nations in New York to give two lectures on the message that we would actually bring the message from these beings that also on another planet, these beings have managed to survive and go through a crisis stage. We too can. We just have to commit to the planetary future. There are many people who think that with the UFO issue is a way to escape the commitment of every day. Quite the contrary. If these beings manage to pass stages of crisis, why not us? Now, they're not going to come to solve our problems. We have to solve them ourselves. But it's always encouraging to know that, yes, if somewhere else someone has done it, why not us?
You have given lectures in the United Nations, and
In the United Nations in 2014, I had the opportunity to be invited by congressmen from the American senator to Washington. I was also in the Washington Press Club. And you know that in the Washington Press Club, in the month of April of 2013, Dr. Stephen Greer met the group Disclosure Project, two very important politicians at the international level, including the former Canadian Defense Minister, Paul Hellyer, who stated that he has had the secret documents in his hands that prove that we're not alone, that we're being visited by highly developed intelligent beings.
so then it is because there is the possibility of these approaches, and that's why they call specialists like you.
Of course, that there has already been an approach. That is, the radio telescopes have already picked up intelligence signals from outer space. There have been these encounters in certain military air bases in the United States and in some other places in the world, like in Russia, for example. One of these UFOs have landed and have been in a frontal and direct dialogue. What happens that is not reported precisely because governments still want to maintain that image of super powerful, and next to these beings, we're nothing.
There are no vested interests or welfare of humanity. We see that all businesses in the politics.
We see this every day in the politics because later we find that there are presidents in countries like Peru, for example, since they are actually prosecuted for having received bribes, having received economic benefits from part of corporations that were later actually commissioned to do road gas, dams, and things, and were those who financed them during the election time. The selfishness, that vanity in all is what really is leading the world to the situation in which it finds now.
And that also happened here as well. I'm talking about the Odebrecht, that precisely a multinational to pay bribes to win the contracts, and that becomes a huge problem of corruption. So that extraterrestrial mentality can come to Earth and our countries to give us a reflection, a thought to think better.
To commit ourselves with the change and give change.